You are listening to News Talk 790 WPIC. Sharon Hermitage, a Cumulus station, sponsored by the Ridgewood at Shenango Valley, a premier senior living residence.
A Texas tornado fighting ISIS. I'm Michael Toscano. A tornado confirmed in a storm wave that damaged a Houston apartment complex. The National Weather Service saying it was an EF 100, packing 100-mile-per-hour winds. We're also seeing tornado warnings elsewhere, as we hear from meteorologist John Trout.
This morning, the concern was flash flooding. Those concerns remain throughout the evening. This afternoon, we've started to pick up tornado warnings in 3 states, Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana, as the region just can't seem to get a break.
Mandatory evacuations and overnight travel curfews in parts of central Texas as the rains continue for another day and into tomorrow. Debate over the effectiveness of U.S. efforts against ISIS on the Sunday talk shows. Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger saying the current commitment by the U.S. is not enough.
You're not losing and you're not winning because we're not really engaged in this fight. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to understand that the goal is the destruction of ISIS.
Congressman Kinzinger was appearing on CNN State of the Union. Senator John McCain telling CBS Face the Nation a new U.S. strategy is needed in the Middle East, including increasing the U.S. military presence.
The overall winner in this whole conflict right now is not ISIS, it's Iran. It's Iran who is controlling 4 countries now and on the move.
President Obama says Israel has nothing to fear over the Iranian nuclear deal.
Marking Jewish American Heritage Month, President Obama spoke at a large D.C. synagogue where most in the audience seemed to support his efforts to curb Iran's nuclear programs.
I'm interested in a deal that blocks every single one of Iran's pathways to a nuclear weapon.
Mr. Obama said the interim agreement, with a final one to be worked out by the end of June, had already caused Iran to halt some of its work.
Now we're seeking a comprehensive solution. I will not accept a bad deal.
Bob Costantini, the White House.
Travel is up this Memorial Day weekend. The experts say that's due largely to gasoline prices averaging $1 less than this time last year. I'm Michael Toscano.
Johnny wants to be a performer, and everybody knows school costs money. Johnny wants to know what he has to do to become a performer. Plus, he needs experience before he decides to spend the money for school. Johnny's confused. He has no one to talk to about his choices. He then hears an ad on the radio about Media8tor Arts Academy, where he can perform, network, train, and find a place to prepare for school. Johnny has found a place to expand his talents to make his decision and also increase his resume. Now, let's explain how Johnny got signed up. He went online to Media8inc.com and clicked on register. They called him back, asked him what his vision was, then found a place for him to perform. Whether it's theater, music, or movies, as long as Johnny is willing, Media8inc.com is able. And that's the story of how Johnny became a performer through Media8 Arts Academy.
So do you smoke? Do you go to the doctor? Maybe not. Correspondent Kathy Foster tells us why.
In some cases, cancer can be treated if diagnosed early, but a recent study shows smokers have a negative attitude about cancer and are less likely to get tested. Researchers found that about 20% of current smokers don't want to know if they have cancer. The study also found that some smokers avoid the doctor because they are afraid of what the doctor may find. I'm Kathy Foster.
The future of televisions, well, it's wallpaper thin.
LG is showing off a 55-inch television that is less than 1 millimeter in thickness and hangs on the wall with magnets and is easy to move as needed. It's just a prototype right now, and the company says the technology is possible through OLED, which is different than LCD and LED TVs because each pixel produces its own light without the bulky backlight in traditional televisions. The new wallpaper TVs are not ready for sale because of high costs, but there's no denying it's where the industry is headed. I'm Joe Ramsey.
And I'm Michael Toscano.
Have you ever thought about publishing a book, but just didn't know how to do it? Well, at Media8, we try to make publishing simple. You ask questions, we give you answers. You want a book? We find the right option for you to publish. When you need advice about getting your methods out to the world, Media8 is the place to call. Register today at Media8inc.com, where we make ideas seem simple.
This is a dangerous groups that we're dealing with now. It was a nightmare.
Flight 807, you're clear for landing. no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator is here.
All doctors to the ER. All nurses to the nurses station. Code blue 305. Shots fired, shots fired. Officer down. I repeat, officer down. 911, what's your emergency? Backup is en route.
Evacuations continue tonight in Maribel.
Apartments, you can see this evacuation notice on one door.
Rolling. Motion. Roll sound. And action.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ohioans, Americans, Pennsylvanians, welcome to the Mediator with me, your host, Brian West. I am here in the studio with my girl Sparks.
Hey.
Alicia Sparks.
That's
We
right.
are ready to go. We got my man Marcus Douglas on the line. Marcus, you there?
Welcome.
Yes, I'm here, Brian.
Excellent,
Hello.
excellent. We are going to talk about the 12-step program and the battle with addiction, and we're going to talk a little bit about Marcus's military life and what he remembers about his military life. Pretty good show today. Pretty good show. Me and Sparks did our research. We're ready to go. We've conquered. We've got our welcome mat on.
Let's go.
Now, did some research on this topic. Everybody struggles with something. Everybody's got their poison, Marcus. So we're going to just pretty much talk to you a little bit about how you got into the business of helping people recover from those addictions. I mean, everybody has something they just can't put down, and everybody struggles with this idea in their head that they can resort to something. So tell us how you got into the 12-step thing, Marcus.
Well, I mean, I suffered from my own addictions back since early age of 13. I started drinking, and it led to a life of addiction to drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And so, throughout that time of that was 18 years of struggling with drugs and alcohol. Finally, I went to treatment probably right around 16 years, but treatment doesn't always work the first time. The individual doesn't always do the things that they need to do the first time. I'm not going to say that treatment doesn't work, but it's more on the individual. Yeah. So I didn't do the things that was told to me and taught to me in terms of what I needed to do to stay sober. Mm-hmm. One of those things was to work a 12-step program.
Right.
So at 18 years, I went to treatment down in Worcester, Ohio, and I stayed down there for a whole year, Brian. I just felt like I needed to get away from the environment. I needed something new, and I just needed to learn something new. That's where I learned about the 12-step program.
Oh, so hello again. My name is Alicia, and it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So you're basically saying that you really think that a lot of times people struggle with substance abuse because they have to want to do it. They have to want to stick with it and do what you're told to do throughout those programs. Is that right?
Well, a lot of people suffer with substance abuse, period. Now, in terms of, their ability to recover,
mm-hmm.
It's a simple program, but it's not an easy program, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'll explain that like this. It's a simple program because it's all mapped out for you.
Okay.
It's not a very easy program because we as individuals who have been addicted to a substance for
mm-hmm.
years and years suddenly have to suddenly have to find themselves not only stopping but changing behaviors.
Got it.
And
Oh, wow.
behaviors don't change immediately, you know.
Yeah.
So when someone is approaching you with this idea of working a 12-step program,
mm-hmm.
you first of all, because of some of the way that we live life out on the, out there in the streets,
mm-hmm.
out there in that environment, there's not a whole lot of trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was first approached with this 12-step approach, I just thought it was like, there's no way that something like this could help my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I didn't put a lot into it,
mm-hmm.
And so it took me a few times before I just, I stopped trying to do things
Your way. Right.
And do things the way.
Yes.
So tell me, Marcus, what is like? Give us what are the 12 steps?
Well, I mean, you have Step one is where you admit it's a lot deeper than I'm probably going to explain to you. But step one is where I'll talk about steps 1, 2, and 3. Step one is where you start to look at if you have a problem, because some people come into this thing for different reasons, you know, be it legal, be it family pressures, be it interventions, you know, so they enter into treatment or the programs for different reasons. So in the first step, you're trying to look and try to decide whether or not you actually have an issue, have a problem,
identifying it.
Right. And step 2 says that if you have a problem, here's some help, you know.
Right.
And so the step 2 basically reads that you came to believe a power greater than self could restore you to sane thinking, you know. And then step 3, this is where a lot of people struggle with, but step 3 says you turn your will and your life over to the care of God.
That's major.
God as you understand Him. Which is that's very significant in this 12-step approach. It's God as you understand Him. Okay. And what that does is it allows you to sort of, you know, relinquish, you know, some of the maybe some of the old beliefs that you had about God, and begin to explore, you know, your own relationship with God. So that's a very important aspect of it.
So let me stop you right there for a second. So basically, when you get ready to go through step number 3, and you know, you're introduced to wielding over your life to God and trying to do it a different way, I could see it being difficult for people because a lot of times outside of the substance abuse, they, even within just thinking on sin, they're like, you know, I've sinned so much. How could He ever forgive me? Or how could a person like me even think about switching over? I'm already so deep in. So, you know, that aside from the substance abuse and trying to get, you know, through this 12-step program, you know, I could see that being difficult. So getting through step number 3 out of 12 is like, whoa. But, you know, me being a Christian myself, I could understand that, you know, you can't do it without God or some type of faith-based situation, no matter what you believe in. You have to believe in something to get you on to move to the next step. So I can understand that.
Well, see, you know, that's a, you know, you're exactly right. But, you know, what it comes down to is that you have to believe in something other than outside of self, you know, because clearly, you know, what you are left with is the thinking that you've been doing in your addiction. And addiction is a brain disease as well as a spiritual disease.
Oh, man. That's deep.
And so if something is wrong with the thing that does the thinking, then it's going to be really difficult to use it to fix something. It's like trying to start up a car with a dead battery. Just because it's a battery, if it's dead, it's not going to perform and do what it is supposed to do.
So Marcus, how do people, I mean, I've seen one of the programs you had put on at Method 8, you had, you know, they came in there and they gave their stories. How do people become addicted? I mean, is it just by accident? Is it by peer pressure? Tell us a little bit about that. How do people become addicted to substance abuse?
Well, see, that's a very interesting question, but a very important one. You know, some time ago, you know, before last year, year before, you know, the professionals. Many professionals would get addiction mixed up with dependency.
All right.
And addiction and dependency is not the same thing.
Okay.
You can become dependent on a substance that is not a narcotic. You know,
to get through.
You can become dependent on a
person.
on blood pressure pills. It's just you know, it's that medication thing. But addiction is a totally different thing. So typically when a person starts using, Okay, there's a couple of different things that's going to determine, if they hit, that point of addiction.
Right.
And remember, it's just really what you're doing is you're manipulating your brain and causing it to rewire or function in a totally different way.
manner. Okay.
So what happens is, first of all, if it's in their genetics, there's a higher risk of them becoming addicted.
So you could be genetically prone to being addicted to something.
You can be genetically. It could be genetically predisposed for, especially for something like alcoholism.
Yeah.
And all people have to do is look in their families and see.
Man.
Right.
And they'll see. They'll see that Uncle so-and-so was an alcoholic, Uncle so-and-so was an alcoholic.
Say my family was
right.
Long line ago.
And it's a chance. There's a very good chance, and especially with males more than females, that it will continue to run in the family like that. Wow. So that's one way that a person becomes addicted. Another way that a person becomes addicted is they start using drugs as a coping, as a replacement for normal or natural or socially accepted coping mechanism.
Yes.
So I know myself. I grew up as a very shy kid who couldn't really, communicate with people around me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So now when I started drinking, I found that it
helped you open up and
it
be
took
more
that
social.
away. And then I was able to talk like everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I
And you
remember
like
the first
that.
time, the first time I
Yeah.
got drunk, I promised myself I was going to drink for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I
Wow.
did, man,
You were in a
because-
good place. You were in a good place.
Because I found I found a girlfriend that night.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Wow. Wow.
Before that, I was afraid
You weren't talking to
girls,
nobody.
man.
No, you weren't talking to nobody.
So,
I was gonna say, Marcus, that was what when I read did a little research on the topic. It said that's what happens is you from all the negative experiences. That's the main thing why people relate to substances, whether it's drugs, cocaine, or anything, is because, like you said, when you can't get in the in crowd, you don't feel love. It's always negative.
Right.
You need that fix. So you're basically saying when you did it, you're like, I'm not turning back.
I'm a totally different person now. Yeah.
And see, the other thing is this. To keep in mind. That drug and alcohol culture, they accept just about anybody, man.
Right.
They don't care who you are. They don't judge.
Right. Right.
And so a lot of people find themselves fitting in because for once in their life, somebody accepts them.
Right.
Oh, man.
And they can identify.
And so the other thing is that's very important to look at is that not all people are addicted to every substance, I should say.
Right.
Because a person really has to like what that substance does to them in order for them to become addicted to it. Not in order for them to become dependent on it, but in order for them to become addicted to it. They have to like what it does for them.
Okay, so I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Why do you think it's important for people to choose the right friends? Is this why, within your environment, as far as the 12-step program goes, is it important for you to make sure that your environment is positive, is light, while you're going through this program? Because I feel like this correlates with what you're saying right now. Anybody is going to accept you as long as we're all on the same chemical dependency.
Yeah.
But okay, now that we step outside of that, you're changing your life, you're moving around. Is it important for you to make sure that you're around the right environment?
Well, definitely. And when you say environment, we're talking about people and places.
Yes.
And so it's very important. But the thing is that it's very natural for us to do that.
Right.
Athletes tend to hang out with other people who play athletics.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People who are race car enthusiasts tend to hang around people who like to work on cars or that type of thing.
Right.
So you know, when you're in your addiction, you tend to be around people who use drugs and alcohol.
Right.
You know, it's what you do.
Right.
It's the environment that you feel most comfortable around.
Yes.
Therefore, when you are trying to get sober, you need to hang around people who are also trying to do the same thing.
Okay.
So when you try to leave those circles, like, did your friends get upset with you? They say, "Oh, Marcus, what are you doing? You know, you can't possibly be leaving."
Fred, look, one of my friends told me, man, you need to go get some help.
Wow.
I say Marcus was lost in the sauce. He was swimming in the liquor.
He said, "You need to go get your life."
And this wasn't only alcohol, man. You know, this has gone on to like cocaine,
right,
and many other substances.
Wow.
You know, but the thing is, some of the friends that I was using with told me, said, "Man, you need to go get some help because you're going to get killed out here."
And what did you say? What did you say to them? What was your response?
I told him, I said, "How could you tell me to go get some help?"
And you're doing the same thing. That would have been my answer.
I got control over mine.
That would have been my answer.
Exactly.
Are you coming with me?
It wasn't until, man, every time I tried to do something a new way where I wasn't going to go out and use, every time I tried to do something new and it kept failing and failing, finally, man, I just surrendered to, somebody else telling me what I needed to do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well,
and a lot of... Go ahead.
No. You can finish. I'll ask what you do.
Okay. And I was going to say, a lot of people, you know, you find a lot of people who say, I don't like people telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's the way we're raised. That's exactly how we're raised, with people telling us what to do.
Yeah.
Be it our parents, be it our teachers, be it a drill instructor in the Marine Corps. It's just, it's what we're, you know, socialized to sort of do, you know.
Which makes sense. So, that makes sense.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
And except when you get there, you know, and people trying to tell you how to stop. All of a sudden, you don't like people telling you what to do.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so I had to get past that, man. I really had to get over that. I had to get past that. And once I did, you know, I was able to give up control and let someone else tell me what I needed to do to achieve this goal of sobriety.
So when you say the 12-step program worked, it worked for you in a sense. What about the people who it didn't work for? And I guess you can answer this question first. When did you find out that when did you know, like, I need help?
That was going to be my question.
Was that your question?
That was going to be my question.
I'm sorry, Sparks.
No, you're right on. We had a telepathic moment, because that was my question.
I just wanted to know, because I can do, like, let me give an example. We all have something we battle with.
Right.
Whether it be cigarettes, whether it be
everybody
drinking,
has a fix.
And whether it be looking at naked women, whatever it is, you know, you just got to get to the point to where it's like, when do you know you need help? So tell us when you figured out, okay.
Like, what was that moment when you finally said to yourself?
Well, the last night that I used was filled with a lot of close calls.
Wow.
You know, and you know, one of them involved someone putting a gun to my head.
Wow.
And even then, I stayed out all night that night. Even then, though, I wasn't prepared to surrender. I had come up with a plan to go and live in Florida, where a friend of mine was living, and she was going to let me come down there and live with her. But she got high too, so I was I had accepted that.
Couldn't get away from it.
That I was going to die, you know.
Right.
That is amazing.
And I called a friend of mine. And he said, "So what you doing, man? It sounds like you giving up." And I said, "Yeah, I'm giving up, man." I said, because I can't beat this thing.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
He said to me, he said, "Good. Now I'm going to get you some help."
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
So your friend got you the help.
Yeah, and this was a guy that I used to get high with. He had gone down to Worcester, and he had gotten clean, and he called down to that treatment center. He called me back, man. It had to be like 5 minutes later. He called me back and said, "You're going down to Worcester."
Wow.
and so that was a life-saving.
It was right on time, right for your life.
Call. And that was not what I intended to call him for.
Right.
I called him to thank him for all the help that he had tried to give me.
Wow.
And so it ended up being the help that he really gave me.
So do you find it hard at this point to care for those? I know your friend was caring for you, and he was relentless, and he really cared for your life and really wanted to see you do better. So now that you're standing where you are and you're about this 12-step program, do you find it hard to care for those that are struggling with addiction now? Do you still feel the same?
I love that.
The same pressure that he felt to make sure that you came over and got right and got clean? Do you feel that pressure to go out and do that for others?
It's not a pressure. It's just something that you have. It's just something that you do.
It's like,
but and I would say that it's something that you have to do if you want to keep what it is that you have.
Got it.
And that is spelled out in the 12th step. You know, where it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps.
Right.
You know, you continue to carry this message and practice these principles in all your affairs. You know, Brian asked the question that said that why doesn't this program work for everyone? You know, and I'll tell you once again. It's not that the program doesn't work. It's that the individual does not connect with the program.
Right. Yeah.
So there's some kind of resistance that individual has that prevents them from connecting fully with the program and doing everything that they need to do to finish, to be successful. You know what I'm saying? That would be like saying, you know, I can come out and start my car up, but if I give you the keys, you know, to come and start my car, it's not going to work for you.
Right.
Well, no, it will work for you because it works.
You should have seen the people at the show, Sparks. Like I seen when he did the play, they gave their testimony and their story.
Yeah.
It was very unique. And the one guy he played redeemed after the story. It's really emotional. I can see why Marcus does it. It is,
and it would change lives.
It makes you feel like, because you hear in this one he said he was on the freeway. He was driving. He was so tore up, so high, that he did not know he didn't have any tires on his car.
Wow.
He was driving.
And he was going down the highway?
Somebody took the tires off the car.
How does that happen? How does that happen?
I'm not meaning to be loud, but he was
That's
deep.
lifted. That's deep. That's deep.
Somebody took the tires off his car and he was driving. And there was some other ones where I'm not going to get all of them, but it was just, that's what he...
Like, this is real life.
It's real life.
This really happens.
And this is what happens.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's why when you hear them police scanners going off in the middle of the night...
This is happening right now.
Somebody
somewhere.
Lifted.
Oh, wow.
The drugs...
But, here's one of the biggest things, though. Here's one of the biggest things I want to get out, because there's a lot of beliefs by people who suffer second-handedly with this thing called addiction, be it family members, be it co-workers, whatever. There's a belief that the individual does this intentionally, that the individual makes a choice,
as if they have control.
I'm going to choose to continue to use over getting better. I'm going to continue to hurt you over getting better. And it's really not, and it's really not a choice at that point in time, because what they have to consider is that the individual themselves, when they try to stop, the whole idea of putting in the effort of trying to stop and failing says that I'm up against something
way greater
than just my decision-making ability.
Well, quick tagline. Ladies and gentlemen, you listen to The Mediator with Brian West and Alicia Sparks.
Hello.
We were talking to Marcus Douglas about the 12-step program and his life and serving in the military. If you want to donate to the program, you can donate at Method 8.
INC, that is the number 8, INC.com.
So that's method8inc.com. We use our funding to support films that we produce and programs like Marcus Douglas, like when he comes and does things, there's extra things that he can do if we have the money to help him out. So Marcus, now you're talking about this addiction thing, and you're talking about the 12-step program. Now, I had the honor of being able to serve for this Memorial Day, and I seen people in my own family have addiction problems, and like I'll give you an example. Okay, when we were kids, but me and my sister, we had. I'm gonna use the monster analogy. the monster would come home sometimes and be tipsy off the crazy horse. So did you have, when you were going through your addiction, did you have those moments to where you were not yourself, like you felt the forces of that addiction affecting your lives, like everything started falling apart?
Yeah. You're never you're never yourself. And when you gotta realize when you say yourself, okay, it's like what self?
Right. You're not the original.
You slowly, so very slowly journey into this new, different world.
Yeah.
And as you do that, you become this different person. Okay, you see here's the thing about addiction, and here's when you know that a person has an addiction, is because it's addiction is irrational. Okay,
Wow.
It's built around a lot of irrational thoughts, because when you're deep in that addiction, you don't have the ability to make rational decisions.
Oh, man.
Okay.
And that's a biological thing.
Right.
That's a biological thing. There are people who say, I want to quit. I'm tired of this. I don't ever want to do it again. And the next day they're doing it again.
So how does it affect your work life? I mean, how does it affect your day on the job? Like we talk, there's a lot of veterans.
And just the jobs around here in Youngstown, man, I could keep it. I had some good jobs, but I could only keep them for about 2 months.
Wow.
Because when I would get my paycheck, man, and I wouldn't come to work the next couple days,
Yeah.
And I mean, I had some really good jobs here in this Youngstown area. I don't understand, when at that time when people were saying that they couldn't find a job, I'm like,
I'm getting jobs left and right, and good jobs.
I just can't keep a job,
Right.
But
Wow.
so that was my issue, and it affects the work life, heavily, because listen, any decision that goes up against an opportunity to use. Is going to be placed in second place.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't care what that is. I don't care if it's going to see your kids play.
Right.
I don't go if they're going to see your kids' baseball game.
Right.
Taking your spouse out to dinner. I don't care what it is. If that opportunity to use comes up, there's going to be some excuses made, and that person is not going to follow through with the original plan.
So I have a question for you, dealing with that, and you're speaking about members of the family and canceling on different events and things of that nature. I want to go back to talking about family members that are coping and dealing with, friends and loved ones that have an addiction. What advice do you have for those people that are dealing and trying to, motivate their loved ones and family members to get into a 12-step program, or to even help their family member or loved one understand that they have an addiction, to do something about it? What is your advice for those people out there that are listening right now?
Well, there are 12-step programs for the family.
Wow. Oh, is there?
Yes, there's 12-step programs for the family. And the thing is, it uses the same exact 12-step format.
Wow.
That they use for the addiction. See, because the 12 steps are not for addicts and alcoholics. In fact, there's nowhere in the 12 steps where it tells you don't take another drink.
Wow.
There's nowhere in the 12 steps where it tells you don't pick up another drug.
Right.
It only mentions drugs and alcohol once, depending on what program that you're in, what fellowship that you're in. But, so one of the suggestions would be for them to connect with a 12-step support group for the family. There's a lot of different ones out there right now, because you have family recovery, you have couples recovery, and these are meetings that are popping up, blossoming, to help meet the needs of the family.
That's
so
awesome.
Go, find a 12-step support group and attend that. Another thing that's very, very important is that if your loved one does make it to treatment, then it's important that the family be a part of that treatment, so that they can better understand what addiction is.
Right.
I had a friend of mine. She would keep a calendar, and she would count the days that she was clean, and I still talk to her, and she always rejoices with me, and she talks about how she's clean, and everybody's having this big old debate about the drug problem, and not just the United States, but in the way even the trafficking that it comes up from Mexico and things like that. And it's like some people, it's even gotten cruel to where some people say, well, why don't we just kill the people who are addicted? Now, if you hear something like that and you're seeing success stories, what would your rebuttal be to a comment like that?
Why don't we just kill people?
I've heard people say, listen, the people who are on drugs, they're wasting resources.
Wow.
We're tired of trying to clean them up. We're tired of spending federal or just tax dollars. I've heard people say that. Let's just.
I mean, how would you feel if that was your family member?
I mean, you have to put diabetics in that class. People with Alzheimer's in that class.
I've heard people say that.
That's deep.
You just have to throw away a lot of people, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mental illness, put them in the group and just kill them too. You know, that's an idiotic.
As a person,
very idiotic thought.
As a person, how dare you sit here and put a value on a person's life?
I mean,
what makes you feel that your life is more valuable than the next?
Well, you got to look at the battle right now. I mean, when you look at all different sides of the ballpark right now, they calling people liberals, they call people conservatives, and they call people Republicans, they call people Democrats.
Right.
So when these people get together, and people like productivity,
right?
They don't like. It's almost
anything
like if I pinch you and I say I'm sorry, I already pinched you,
right?
So we either can get over it or
move
we can
on.
get better. But some people don't think like that. I mean, you got, even when you had the Germans, when they were over there just massacring people. So Marcus, I mean, I've seen the people in his circle. It was the one lady, she had became a firefighter because she had recovered, and you could see it in her heart that this meant a lot to her, you know? And I gave her a hug after that, because I'm like, okay,
you wanted to bless her.
Because you want to see, it's a good story when people redeem themselves.
Right.
But I don't understand why people get this theology, like you can just get rid of problems,
I think they just can't identify, if they're not, if they've never been there, if they don't know anybody that's been there, they don't really know what it entails. They just know their life, and they're too ignorant to step outside of their own shoes and put themselves in the next person's light to understand that this person or these people are suffering. They don't even realize that they're suffering, and you're not making it any better. You're making it worse.
And you know what, man? And a lot of people just don't believe that there's a solution. But that's because they're not they're not coming out and hearing or coming out and seeing that people do recover from addiction.
Right.
They're just looking at they're looking at the problem. They're not looking at the results that's out here. And I'm gonna tell you, man, I have a lot of good friends who are in recovery and has maintained that status for a very long time. Right now, we have a very bad problem with heroin, and so there's 12-step programs for heroin addicts popping up everywhere. But I'll tell you, I have knowledge of some people who have done very well in regaining their lives.
Wow.
It's just an amazing thing. So, when people think like that, they're more part of the problem than they are with any solution. Not to only that, that's just the way they look at life.
Right.
And the one place that they fail to look is in the mirror, because everybody has issues.
You know what I've always believed, Marcus, and this is just to be honest with you, I have a strange theology sometimes, but I think that, especially like when I see what you did at the at Method 8, I think sometimes God brings angels to the earth. This is the weird theology.
That's not weird.
People come to the earth and they have to go through
certain situations,
the experience to be able to bring people out of the experience.
There you go, man.
Yep.
But you know what? That right there, that's not that's not uncommon. That's natural.
Yes.
We have to go to college in order to learn how to do the things that we want to step outside of college to do.
Yep.
You know. And so people do, and I was just discussing that same issue right there with a young lady the other day, who's helping me do some research for another play that I'm getting ready to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the things that I've gone through in those 18 years.
You're taking notes.
Allow me to be who I am today.
The life experiences.
And who I am today is someone who is willing to help that person that's struggling with with addiction.
Right.
And what you said about God is that people fail to realize that God works through people.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
He does. You got to listen to the signs.
We may not understand fully how that whole thing plays out.
Right.
But we do feel it when it plays out.
Now, speaking of how things play out, going back to, you knowing a lot of people that have made it through this 12-step program, and in a minute I'm going to have you finish what the 12-step program is, because I stopped you at 3. So I do apologize for that. But before we go there, I do want to ask you, how often do people relapse? Like, does that happen often? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Relapse is a frequent occurrence only because the behavioral aspect of addiction is not easy to just turn off. But the behavioral aspect of any habitual behavior is not easy to turn off.
Right. Right.
You take one of those young NBA players and you tell them, okay, we want you to stay out of the gym for 6 months.
Go Cavs,
and
by
they're
the way.
gonna go through some issues. You can't pick up a basketball for 6 months. And
They would just,
you make it worse. You take them to the gym and go, okay, but you can't play.
Right.
You got to watch other people play.
It's
That's probably not going to happen.
That is crazy. So you say drinkers there's professional drinkers out there.
It is.
There's a lot of professional drinkers out there. Okay? There's a lot of professional drinkers out there.
Now, Marcus, let's talk about veteranship real quick, because we got Memorial Day coming up tomorrow. Now, you've taken on the responsibility of working at the VA and helping out veterans, and like I told you, sometimes God sends people on earth, and I honestly believe if the people don't know what the colors that meant, they mean black and white. I took that from the Palmilla flag, and I thought it would be nice to have those colors. I served and I wore white and blue for so long, and I think that I always believe that God put me through my military experience to be able to see what that life was like. So, and now you're still on the battlefield since it's Memorial Day tomorrow. And what do you feel? I mean, what was your life like when you were serving?
My life when I was serving, man, I went into the service not to be in the service, but to really get away.
Wow.
But it was one of the best things that could ever happen to me, because it taught me a discipline that I came back later on in years to use.
Yeah.
You know. But at the time that I served from 80 to 84, and we really weren't, the country really wasn't dealing with any, real war or, major skirmishes at that time. I really have a respect for these vets who have gone off and fought for this country and come back home, and there's some things that they need to address, be it PTSD, whatever it is, and we're prepared to I'm prepared to serve them, I'm prepared to help them,
because you've been there.
And it's an honor, because the thing is this, I actually, I'll tell you, man, God is awesome,
Isn't
man.
he, though? Isn't he, though? He really is, though.
Because I didn't know if I could really talk about that, but it's not like I can't.
Right.
God is awesome, man, because that was my whole goal. My whole goal was I want to work for the VA. It wasn't my goal with my bachelor's, but when I went into my master's, the only reason I went into the master's program is so I could go and get a job at the VA.
Wow.
Yeah, I was obsessed with it too.
And so I went through that program. I had to go through the 4-year program because I worked 2 jobs while I was going to school for my master's.
But you got it done.
But I got it done. And I didn't have a problem telling people I was a recovering addict and recovering alcoholic. I had no problem. But
because you never know who that might help. That might help the next person.
I remember there was a guy in our class. He sat in front of me, and we were in this one class, and he said, those alcoholics and addicts will never change.
Wow.
They will always be who they are. And I said, well, I tell you what, man, you got one sitting behind you, and I'll be walking across that stage.
Well, that's right. That's right.
There you go.
That's right.
And it just shut him up, you know. So change does happen.
Yeah.
But to say, I went through that program, man, and I applied for positions at the VA, and it just didn't seem like anything was coming through for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And out of nowhere, man, one day I got a phone call from a guy at the VA saying he wanted me to come up and interview.
It was an honor.
And, you know, and so whenever I encounter something, and wherever, and I like to, you know, the name of the play that I did up there was with him at 8 was The Journey Home.
Yeah, Journey
and
Home.
So, you know, I look at my life as a journey, you know.
Yes.
And so, you know, this journey that from through school and into the VA is I'm there because I'm supposed to be there.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
People. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say people always have to. I think a lot of Americans, and you have to understand the life of a military person to understand why they cherish it so much, because you get in there and you're serving, and for somehow, and every time I read a story about a veteran dying or a veteran not getting support, it always hurts me, because
you can identify.
You look at that statue of the lone sailor. I used to look at that statue all the time, and I know why they put that statue there. You're always alone. You know, you don't feel like your family can send you things.
Right.
But you're out on the sea,
right?
You know, and you're sometimes in the middle of the night you start, you know, you get emotional for no reason.
Right.
So when you come home, that was the first place I went to, was the VA. It's like it's almost like a homage. You know, you come there and I don't think most Americans will ever understand how great they actually have it. You know, because when you're out there, I don't think they understand, like, you know, family. Just even when they have family, and I see some of these men doing just strange things to a lot of, beautiful women. Right. And a soldier would love to have a wife. Right. A faithful wife. And I see men do crazy things. I even get upset when I watch Salmon. I love Martin Luther King to the heart, but when he cheated on the, I'm like, oh man, if I had a woman like that, if I was serving the shoe, but that's just what you go through as a soldier. Right. You know, and that's why I honor you, Marcus, because you came home and that was you said, I'm going to work for the VA.
Right. So Marcus, I know you mentioned, about change happening previously. So that leads me to my next question, which is, should people that are struggling with a bad habit set goals? Should they be, setting goals throughout the 12-step program, or even after the 12-step program? Is it realistic for them to do that, or is it just, let's just take this one step at a time? How does that set up?
You definitely want to take one step at a time, and I recall. I mean, I was very blessed. Okay, I have to say that I was very, very blessed when I came out of treatment. I am not only a vet, but I'm a disabled vet. So financially, I was sort of okay, where I didn't have to immediately get out and start looking for work.
Right.
I truly, man, this is something I truly pass on to anybody who's going through the struggle, is that I just listened and did what other people told me to do.
Right.
Until I reached. It's sort of like what you do with a child when that child is trying to ride a bike.
Yeah.
And you're holding on to it, and you're holding on to it as as they're going down, and at some point you let go and they have it.
Well, wow. I think in the Navy we call them the S word, S bags. I'm not going to say what they call them, but they call them S bags to the point to where they get it together. So you said you listen to people calling you the S bag word, and then you finally decided I'm gonna
get my life together.
I'm gonna get it together.
I don't want to be S bag. I don't want to be over there.
They will call you that in a minute in the Navy.
Wow.
They don't like slackers.
Okay.
I just didn't want to keep hurting anymore, Right. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't have a lot of faith. I mean, we're not really. I mean, I didn't have a lot of faith going into treatment.
Okay.
I remember my friend taking me down there. Him and his brother taking me down there. And he said, well, man, he said, this is going to work good for you. And I told him, I said, I don't know. I said, I really don't know, man. I say, because I've tried and I just can't do this.
Right.
Yeah.
He told me, this is what he told me. He said, man, if you don't have any hope right now, he said, you can use some of mine.
Oh, wow.
That was sweet. That was real nice.
Wow.
you know, I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those logic guys. So I said, you know what, that makes sense because he got good hope.
Right.
So I can use some of his hope.
Let me get
to
that.
make it through this thing.
Yes,
you know?
yes. Sometimes that's all it takes.
So what do you do at the VA, Marcus? Tell us a little bit about your job.
I'm a substance abuse counselor there. I've been a
that is
substance
excellent.
counselor for for many years, for 17 years. I've been working in the substance abuse field.
Wow.
And so I do that, and you know, it's once again, you know, it's an honor because. And I'm gonna tell you, one of the things is I'm starting to understand veterans better by being around a lot of veterans.
Isn't that awesome?
I think we just want to live. I had to, when I came home, it was the same thing. You just want to live a normal life, and it's hard when you cannot accept when you get punched so many times.
Right.
You know, you become a punching bag, and you just want to feel. I think most people just want to feel
appreciated and loved.
That's it. And what's wrong with that, right?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That's another human That's just another human aspect that we have, man. We want to feel love. We want to feel accepted.
Right.
You know, and you know, I mean, I just learned some things. I mean, you know, it's one thing to hear things on a television show, or you know, to hear things, or you know, you're sitting around talking to some friends who never been in the service,
right?
You know, and you're discussing some of the things that have taken place in you know, in our history, but. It's another thing to hear it from the people who were there.
Oh yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and right now we give a lot of celebration to our Vietnam vets, man.
That's amazing.
They didn't get it when they came
That's
home.
right.
Oh no, they didn't.
We're trying to really give that to them now.
That's awesome.
You know, and you know,
quick tagline, everybody. You're listening to the media with Brian Weston and Alicia Sparks.
Yes.
If you want to donate to the program, you can always donate at method8inc.com or follow the instructions on there. Method the number 8. Go ahead, Sparks.
INC.com.
You can go on there and check us out. We have our shows. We put them on there. You can get on our email list. Please do not unsubscribe. I'm so tired of seeing people unsubscribing to the email list and subscribing. And we're just trying to do.
Did that make you feel some type of way?
No, well, we're doing great.
Yes.
I just like to feel. I want to feel love.
It's not for everybody.
It's not.
It's not.
Well,
you know?
we're trying to bless people, Sparks.
Well, we are blessing people. It's happening on a Sunday right now.
So, Marcus, real quick.
I think what you guys are doing is really great, and I'm starting to learn a lot more about the whole Method 8 and the things that they do and everything.
Yes.
And I really want to be supportive of you guys.
With a culture,
I think it brings an awareness.
Yeah, the culture has always been redemption. The number 8 means redemption, resurrection. So God divinely put us on the same path because you're helping people redeem themselves.
That's right.
That's what I told you when I heard your boy's song up there. I'm like, oh man, this is a calling, and God called me.
So Marcus, I have one last question for you. Seeing as though you are working, with the veterans and you are there, my question to you is, do you think that the 12 program is working? Like, do you see a high success rate? You know, what are your feelings about that?
I think that once again, I would have to answer that like this, because I heard something on the TV a couple of days ago that sort of caught my attention because of exactly that. They said that, in today's society, there are far few less people who believe in God and Christianity.
Yeah, that's wild.
Than some years ago. Now, people will get turned off from the 12-step program because of that word God.
Yeah, they do have.
And so, a lot of times what I try to explain to them that it's a higher power of your understanding, meaning that anything that has more power than you at that given time, reach out to it.
Right.
Reach out to that power and allow that power to help you, because that power has gotten what it is that you're trying to get.
That's right.
I've seen miracles I've seen miracles. My buddy. I've seen when people come to God and come to Christ, and that's actually.
It's a totally different thing to happen to you, man. Because I tell you, man, I'm gonna tell you, man, my life has been guided by God for a very long time. Even in my addiction, I didn't realize, man, because I had a lot of friends who would go to jail and things like that. And I never went to jail.
Right.
And I didn't understand it, because I was with these people. You know, I've never been to jail, man. My life has been so guarded by my higher power, man, by God.
Right.
And it's just been an amazing journey. And my eyes was not open to that until, I was able to do some rational thinking and really see that, wow, God was really taking care of me.
Yes. So we're down to the last 5 minutes of the show. Marcus, tell us a little bit about what more you got going on, where people can find you at, and how people can get involved if they want to help themselves out. Can people call you directly, or how do they get involved with the store?
People can call at 330-507-5162. What I have going on right now is that we're going to do the show A Journey Home again during Recovery Month in September. So right now the shows are set for the 12th and the 26th, and so we would like people to come out and I've done some different things, Brian. It's going to surprise you because you have no idea.
You have no idea.
Yeah, you have no idea. So I've done some different things to sort of like change the show around a little bit. Even if people who have seen it want to come back and see it, there'll be some different things.
And you still have it on video and everything, so where people can buy the video at?
Still have it on video, and actually, it would actually be through Media8tor could actually help people through that. So you would have to give those people your information.
Oh yeah,
but, there's a number of shows that I want to do, and so anyone who has some interest in doing some acting and is very serious about it, because I told you before I had some problems putting together a group of people.
Yeah. It's people are just not as ambitious.
They have to be dedicated.
Yeah, they're not as ambitious.
Got to be dedicated. And going back to what you were saying before, as far as people believing in God and number 3 step of your program, I commend you that not only do you want to change people's lives, but you also want to let them know, that God is real and that their addiction is within whatever they are pulling on. So to those out there that are dealing with addiction, definitely reach out to Marcus. Definitely reach out to Media8tor.inc. Not only are they trying to get you right, but they also want you to play in their place. So let's get going.
And that's what it takes. I mean, when you came into Media8tor, I was moved. Media8tor has never, just for people listening out there, we have never seen a bit of profit. We used to hear about some of these companies who make about $300,000 a year. I think I've spent every bit of my earnings to keep the business going. The business plan started out as a counseling service. And I think when you came in there, Marcus, I actually felt my own, I cleansed my own inner life. I tried to see, I'm not a perfect person. I always tried to find faults within myself, but I was very moved by the show. You could see it in those people's faces. They were up there, and that was that meant a lot to them, being on stage, telling their story.
Well, and addiction comes in many forms.
I'd never seen a show like that before. I see comedians get up on stage and joke around, but I'd never seen people,
that powerful.
And it was comedy in a sense, but it was it was a mood because it was real. It was no script.
Right.
They sat up there and they talked about what was going on, and I thought that was very moving. I want to thank you for coming on the show today, Marcus, man.
Yes.
I mean, I'll definitely be getting the word out about what you got going on. I want to thank everybody for tuning to the Media8tor with me, Brian West, and Alicia Sparks.
Yes.
I want to wish everybody a happy and safe Memorial Day. Just like Marcus said, it can happen at any moment where you can take that drink and you can become addicted. So please try to be protective, drink responsibly out there, drive safely. Marcus, is there any last comments you want to make? We got a few seconds left in the show.
Just that, really, I want to put this out there that any veterans out there, that need help, because a lot of them don't know. But any veterans out there that need help, seek out your local Veterans Administration,
Yes.
the clinic or the hospital. And there's a lot of services available to us as vets, man. I always say that one of the best things I ever did in my life, Brian, was to raise that right hand and take that.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen. I believe you.
And where I am today has a big part to do with that right there, So
And I commend you for that.
I just want to thank the both of you for giving me this opportunity to come on the show.
Yes.
And I look forward to working with you, Brian, in the future.
Excellent. I want to thank everybody for tuning to the Mediator. Me and Alicia Sparks is about to ride back to the city. Have a good week, everybody.
Listening to News Talk 790 WPIC, Sharon Hermitage, a Cumulus station sponsored by the Ridgewood at Shenango Valley, a premier senior living residence.